Good morning and welcome to the EZFX signal trading room for Monday, August 8th, 2016. My name is Bradley Freed, and if you're joining today, we're going to be looking at our watch list from last Thursday, seeing how the trades that we had open and we're looking at have progressed. And if there are any new trades, I'm going to add them to the list and explain the setups to you so that we can take those trades together. If you have any questions during the broadcast, please go ahead and post them to the chat room on this page, and I will answer them live at the end of the broadcast. If you are watching the recording, please send me an email at ezfxsignal@gmail.com with any questions that you have. You can also post to the trading room group, which I encourage you to join from the community menu on the top page. And I would also encourage you to use private messages. You can go to community and send me a private message as well. All right. So let's get started by reviewing the watch list from last Thursday. We were watching the dollar peso sell trade. In our new open trading list, we had the dollar pound buy and the CAD yen buy, which were open. We also had a euro dollar sell, a New Zealand dollar sell, and a dollar Swiss buy, which were open. And then we've had these 5 pound trades that have been open for over a month. I'm still looking for a longer term win on profit target on these. Euro pound sell, pound CAD buy, pound Aussie buy, pound Aussie buy, and pound Swiss buy. Okay, so let's jump over to the charts, take a look at these, and see what's going on. So first of all, there was an additional trade that I sent out, an Aussie yen buy, that I want to add to our list. This trade set up pretty nicely. Class A zone. Change to the color, triangular moving average color, a triangular moving average color change. And along with the movement in the other yen pairs, that was enough to get me into this trade. And it progressed quite nicely last week. I want to make sure that's on our list so we keep following it. So that's 3 yen trades I decided to get into. Towards the middle or end of last week. Starting with the dollar yen. This trade kind of moved sideways after I got into it, and then it finally broke out at the end of last week. And there's really been an awful lot of, I don't know if it's good economic news, but economic news that should drive this higher. And mainly that's all the stimulus money that the Japanese government has been pouring into the economy since the upper house elections a few weeks ago. So this pair dropped an awful lot on pessimism after that, but it's right above 100, which is a real emotional level for this pair. 100 has been pierced before, but below 100 would be a bad place for this pair to be at all. It did go below 100 briefly after the Brexit, and it's been below 100 a lot in the last few years after 2008. And I just don't have any data really that far back, but 100 is not a level that it's gone below very often. So we had a nice setup. This met all our criteria, and we had this, again, this big fat demand zone here, which is almost too big to be useful, as I've said in several broadcasts now. But it is a Class A zone. We had new divergence. We had almost a bubble here. This is kind of becoming a bubble again as this line repaints, as it moves upwards. And we had a trend line break. So I went ahead and took it on that. We later got, a few hours after we got in, we got confirmation with a triangular moving average color change turning to blue. It's still moving sideways though, and it didn't really break out until here. So we had to wait a few days for this really to take off. And now it's getting closer to the first profit target, which is the August monthly pivot at 103.321. We are seeing one Class B bearish divergence line. For those of you who watch the broadcast, you know that I consider divergence alone to be a false signal, and so I'll ignore it. If there was also a supply zone there, I'd consider going ahead and closing down the trade, or at least taking partial profit and moving the stop to break even. But as it is looking good. It's making new highs. It's already moved. Let's see, we got in about down here. It's already moved 127 pips. Our target for the first point that we'll take profit is 212. And this may be a larger rebound up to 106 or around there. So I put my profit target up here at the weekly pivot from 2 weeks ago. And I think that's reasonable. If you look at the 4-hour chart, that was where it made this recent high before the election. So it may return up there and just kind of move in a range for a while. And there's also an opposite Class A supply zone up here. It may get as far as the bottom of that zone, but we're being a little bit more conservative, and that's still hundreds of pips of profit. I think if we get all the way up there, we're going to be sitting at, yeah, over 500 pips of profit is what we're going for the final target. So I'm pretty happy with that. And anyway, this is looking real good. So we're in it. We're going to stay in it. Next, we had the CAD, and this didn't take off as easily, but I took it at the same time and sent a signal on this. We almost had a bubble here. We didn't quite get it. We did have Class A divergence, a trend line break, and a color change in the triangular moving average, which was the signal for me to go ahead and get into the trade. It took off and then it dropped, which is kind of disheartening, but I just stayed in it, and it broke out and it's moving higher now. So we had a lot of dollar news last week. I think a lot of that drove this pair down. And but now it's starting to take off again. We also had Japanese stimulus news, which drove this, which was not, the market was not impressed with it, at least for currencies. But I think that good news is starting to sink in. I think we're low and people are starting to buy. So first target is about 178. Final profit target at the weekly pivot, again from a couple weeks ago at 81.1947. And finally, the Aussie yen. This was the last one I sent out. This has moved exceptionally well. We looked at dollar yen, right? This has moved exceptionally well since the entry. It's getting close to the first target, which is the weekly pivot at 78.3550. That weekly pivot is last week's weekly pivot. And once we hit that, we're going to move the stop to break even, take partial profit, and then go after the final profit target, which is the weekly pivot from 2 weeks ago, a little higher. Looking at the 4-hour chart, this is what we've got. This pair has, after Brexit, it bottomed at this zone here. We never made it all the way down there, but it's rebounding now, and I think we can at least get there, if not higher. So I feel like our profit targets are conservative, they're achievable, and we'll be able to take some good profit out of this trade. So I'm still in this. I still like this very much. We'll just hold on to it. Okay, next, let's just jump up to the dollar peso sell. That was another one I had that we were watching last week. And I wasn't ready to get in it, but it became ready. We got a Class B supply zone. We had a trend line break. So, and we also had a color change to the triangular moving average. Those three signals were enough to get you in somewhere in here. And I did not send this out as a signal. The timing just didn't work for me. So you would have put the stop above this new supply zone. Still use the monthly pivot at 18.6022 as the initial profit target, and the final profit target is still, where is it? You have a weekly pivot from 3 weeks ago that we were using. And that's even before the 78.68% level, so I think that's more than reasonable. So this trade is open now, according to our rules. And if you got in up here, you had a stop of about 118. It's already gone 271. If it hits this target, it'll have gone 280. And a final profit target is 439. So I'm going to move this to the open column. That's looking good. Also, our yen trades, they're all open, yeah. Okay, next we have a euro dollar sell. And this is advanced. We have now hit the first profit target, and it dropped quite a bit after that, and before retracing and starting to range. I still like this to go to lower lows. Our final profit target is the weekly pivot from 2 weeks ago. Our initial profit target was the August monthly pivot, and we hit that nicely. So if you haven't already, the stop should be at break even. We got it up here with a required stop of about 28 or 29, which is really nice. I mean, you could have a nice fat trade size on this pair, and it dropped in a very organized way down to give us 98 pips of profit for the first target. Stop should be break even, and we're going for this final profit target, which is going to give us, if it's hit, about 205 pips. So that is still open. It's still moving very well. Next, let's look at the New Zealand dollar. This also is a trade that we talked about in the trading room that was not sent out as a signal. And it's also continuing to move. Remember, I told you last week there was no reason to get out of this trade when it was doing this, and it was looking like it might stop out. And I was right. And I'm not being arrogant. I'm just saying I was surprised I was right. And it's a good thing, because that means our system did what we would expect it to do. And as long as we didn't give into emotion and panic and get out of the trade, we were rewarded in it when it hit the first profit target down here at the 50% Fibonacci retracement level. We got in after the trend line break. The initial required stop is 71. Initial profit target was 86. So it's greater than 1-to-1. That satisfies a risk to reward ratio requirement. Stop should now be at break even. And our final profit target is down here at the 78.6 retracement level, or the weekly pivot from 2 weeks ago, because they're right about in the same position. Next, a dollar Swiss buy. This was also a trade that was not sent out as a signal, but that we discussed and described in the trading room. This has moved nicely. The stop's at break even now. This is the mirror image of the euro dollar, and these both have worked out very nicely. Final profit target on this, we're getting close, is the weekly pivot from 2 weeks ago. So your stop should be at break even on this trade. You got in down here after the trend line break and entry signal. You've already taken 102 pips on part of your position at the first profit target. And if we get to the final target, you'll be able to take a total of 210 out of any remainder of the position that's open. But your stop should be a break even. Risk should be off the table at this point. Okay, let's look at our pound trades now, starting with the euro pound sell. And I've been in these a long time. We had some negative pound news, and that the Bank of England decided to cut interest rates. That was expected. It was largely priced in, but it still affected price a lot on speculation, I think, more than anything else. And we'd had this advance of that announcement, which is always interesting, because I think the market knew, they'd anticipated that this was going to happen. It was predicted exactly if you look at what was projected by most economists, they nailed it as far as what the Bank of England was going to do. In spite of that, the pair kind of advanced, and then it had this quick move to the downside. I'm currently at break even on this. I've taken partial profit on this. I've talked about this several times. So my goal, since I have no risk on this pair, is to try to get down here to this monthly pivot. And at this point, it's not working for me. But I have no risk on this either, except the profit that's sitting in this position. This is already a profitable trade because I've taken partial profit down here. So what I've noticed in my testing over and over again and in my live trading is that sometimes we'll get out of a trade that has a long-term idea like this. And I'll take a profit on it, especially on a retracement or a reversal or something. This isn't in every case, but this isn't a case like this where we've had this huge move in the pound. And then I'll look back a few months later and the trade would not have stopped out. And it in fact got to the planned profit target. So in this case, I'm testing that theory. I'm trying to push beyond any emotions I have about the profit that's on the table, especially since risk is no longer a factor and I've already taken some profit. And I'm going to see if I can get down here. And if it stops out and I get another entry signal, I'm going to try again. And I'm going to keep working on this idea for a few months if necessary and see if I can get, 30, 40% on my account out of just a few trades, out of one trade idea. Because I think it's possible, and I think a lot of times we don't do that because we feel like we need a number of trades in a short amount of time, or we don't have the patience to go ahead and do that. But I do think it's possible because the evidence shows it. It's just that if we can trade like we test, if we can be that patient with weeks or months as we are with minutes that it takes to do that same time period of trading in a backtest situation, then I think we can have the same results. It just takes focus and patience. So we're going to test that theory, and we're going to see if together, and we're going to see how that works out. Right now, this pair is moving sideways after the interest rate cut, and I want to see if there will be improvements to the downside to get to the monthly pivot for July on this pair. Moving right on to the to the pound CAD. This again dropped after the announcement, and it recovered a little bit. We had a buy bubble here. We still have a bearish triangular moving average, but this has recovered quite a bit, and I expect it to move higher. And again, I'm trying to get to at least this July monthly pivot on this pair as well. Stop is a break even. There's no risk on the trade, so I'm just going to wait it out and see if we can get there. Next, we have a pound newsy buy. Same thing. This big drop last week that we saw has been retraced about 50%. That dropped off again. I suspect if we have a color change in the triangular moving average that this will start to rebound a little higher. And again, our profit target for this is the monthly pivot from July. Stop is at break even. We've already taken partial profit on the trade. Pound Aussie buy. This is the only one I still have risk on. So this is the one that could potentially lose some money. It did well on the open. It broke a little higher and then it's dropped again back to the low it made last week. So this may or may not stop out. If it does, it's not a huge issue. It's it's sized to be less than 1% of my equity. So I'm not sweating it too much. My initial profit target I've been trying to get to is this weekly pivot from July. And if I go ahead and go to the 4-hour chart, you can kind of see what this did. It started to get there, got pretty close, and then it dropped off. The triangular moving average changed color, and then we had this interest rate cut, which took us right back almost to the low made immediately after the Brexit. So it may stop out, but I'm hoping it'll rebound along with the others. And if it just stops out, I'll wait for the next Class A buy signal and try to buy it again because I still like this idea. And finally, we have a pound Swiss buy. This trade, again, it made a high, it dropped, when it dropped, it left a Class A supply zone in its wake, and it recovered a bit after that slowly. It's down a little bit now again. This has been one of the better performers in terms of moving in the direction of the profit target. We took profit on the first profit target fairly quickly, after which it moved sideways and dropped, recovered, dropped. Any bit of good news. I think actually that rate cut in England was good news. Fundamentally, that means that the pair should drop, but so much devaluation has already been priced into this even before the Brexit vote. If you look back, let's go to the weekly chart. You know, it started dropping off here, and along with the polling and Brexit, it kept dropping all the way down. So this pair has been devalued significantly already. So I think a lot of this interest rate cut was priced in, and it wasn't a surprise. But we'll see how this week shakes out. We'll see if any of these get stopped out at break even or at a loss. And if they don't and they recover, then we have a lot of upside and no risk on this. So when you're thinking about trading, you have to think about risk versus reward. And right now we have no risk and a huge potential reward on these pairs. And this is simply based on the idea that's been borne out again and again, that when you have a huge drop that happens very quickly, you get a nice reversal, even though you may have to wait a few weeks for it to happen. Price largely eventually returns to where it started. So that's all I'm looking at right now. We don't have any new results or new trades currently at this point in time. I'm looking at charts, and actually there is one that might be worth considering. That's this euro yen. This trade has, along with the other yen pairs, has kind of moved upwards. We had the same thing kind of breaks it drop into, they created this huge zone. If I move to the 1 hour chart, it's a little bit more pronounced. We have divergence, we have a triangular moving average color change, we don't have a buy bubble. And we're starting to get a trend line break on this kind of conservative trend line here. If we close above this line and we buy this pair, we need about 150 pips to stop to get there. So it'll be a small trade size to keep it under 1% of your equity. But there's a lot of potential upside. If we adjust our fibs down to this new low, we can use the Fibonacci retracement levels, I think, to get, or the pivots to get targets that will meet our risk to reward ratio requirements. So we use the monthly pivot from last month, the July monthly pivot. We're scheme 145 for 189, that works. And for our final profit target, we can use a 78.6 or the weekly pivot from 2 weeks ago. Which would give us, for 145, we would get 127. And so I'm going to add this, I think it's a new idea. This is something I've been watching. And this only needs one more thing to really take off. So I'm going to head and call it new. You still need to have a trend line break to get in it. Don't get into it until you have that final confirmation. And usually if we have something on the euro yen, we also have something on the Swiss yen. So let's just take a look at that. Pound yen, I'm not too excited about just because the moves are so violent. I always struggle with keeping this pair even on our watch list, but the Swiss yen is making a similar move. If we take it down to the 1 hour chart, we have the same thing as divergence. If you drew a trend line on this pair in similar places, then it's already broken that trend line. So this one is ready to go. It's really the same trade as the euro yen. I'd encourage you just to take one or the other, just so you don't concentrate too much risk in a single trade. On the other hand, I've jumped in all these yen trades already, so you can do what you like as long as you control your risk. If I adjust the fibs again, There's a decent initial profit target at the monthly pivot from July. Required stop is only 95 on this, which is actually more favorable than the euro. So you could even use this first pivot for 130. That would be the August monthly pivot. Or you could use last month's monthly pivot for 195. I always opt for the closer target, even though it's below the 50, since it satisfies our risk to reward ratio requirement. And then if you want to use something that's close to the 50, you can also just use the monthly pivot. It's almost the same level from July. And then for your final target, this weekly pivot is just about at the 78.6% retracement level, which I like to use for an extension profit target. So we'll set a second target there and just see what happens. But you have the option to go for this closer target. That's what the point I wanted to make, because getting to there at this point in time, if you get into the trade, the risk to reward ratio is greater than 1-to-1. So I'm also going to add a Swiss yen buy to this list. Make sure to write which direction it is. Okay. And I have not yet sent these out of Signal, so I'm going to just take the asterisks off. All right, so that's the update for today, August 8th, Monday. I hope you're having a good Monday. I hope you had a great weekend. There's a lot of great stuff setting up. Please manage your risk. If you have questions about managing your risk, please check the risk management lesson in the course, or look at the video I have with the download for the risk management worksheet on the downloads menu. And as always, if you have any questions, you can contact me at EZFXsignal@gmail.com. I just want to check real quick and see if we have any questions in the chat room. And I don't at this point, so I'm going to wrap it up. My email address, as always, is EZFXsignal@gmail.com. I'm always available to answer questions. I try to answer within a single business day. So please don't, if you have anything at all you want to ask me about that's trading related or course related, please go ahead and shoot me a mail, and I'll get back to you. Take care and have a great Monday, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the EZFX Signal live trading room. Thanks for watching.